Hi there, Mr. Automation with a new video, and today about how to detect pending reboots. It was a request from a viewer, so I will make a little video for that. So let's start. Let's share my screen. Yes, so I have a script here which can deploy virtual machines for me. A lot of flavors, by the way, Linux, Windows, even Unix. But today we're going to deploy a couple of Windows systems and a couple of 2019 servers and try to detect pending reboots on them, right? So we need to install some updates first, most probably. Then if we have a pending reboot, then we need to able to detect that. And then after that we also reboot them, and after that we run the script again, of course, and it shouldn't be a pending reboot. So that's sort of the story. So let's, I have a wrapper here. This wrapper deploys 5 virtual machines. I have a count here, and that's basically just calling this script with some input arguments there. And then I have 5 virtual machines to play with. So I run the script now. I'm not gonna bore you with the whole process. As you can see now, we have a couple of PowerShell windows here running, right? So those are all deploying. So this is will be Windows 5, and this is Windows 1. So now we get 5 new virtual machines. So I pause the video a little bit while the deployment is running. Perhaps it's interesting to see they're all being added to the cluster now. So perhaps we can see them as well. And we can, you see them? 5 virtual machines now new in the cluster. Those are all being provisioned currently with PowerShell. So this is the last reboot. After this, we should have some machines to play with. So we have 5 virtual machines, and I can log into one of them, and I will do that now. Let's see if we have some updates to apply first. And as you can clearly see, I haven't updated for a while, so yeah, it's an old image. So let's check for some updates. As you can see, I have plenty of updates here. So for .NET and malicious software removal tool and a couple of others, so that will take some time. Let's install them first. And by the way, I have a script that can install Windows Update for me, by the way, but I just did it manually now for one system. That should be sufficient for the demo. Okay, so let's continue. So the first one I accidentally rebooted, so it's getting another update, by the way, it doesn't matter. And this one, the number 2 for instance, has now restart required, and the other virtual machines, this 3, 4 and 5, I haven't touched them yet. So now let's dig into how to get the pending reboot information, if there's a pending reboot. And I'm going to explain the script as well, but I need to explain a little bit how Windows works as well. So I open this function and I'll just show a couple of registry keys. So basically, inside of HKLM, we have this component-based servicing key. If that key contains a subkey reboot pending, then there's a reboot pending. There's another key, Windows Auto Update. You can also check that for a reboot pending. And there's another key in Windows, and that's the session manager. That has a pending file name operation. So those are files that still needs to be renamed and applied. And often they are in use when a Windows update runs, and you cannot update those files basically. So you need to reboot. And during a reboot, Windows checks this session manager pending file name operations. And then it renames all those files. And then this key will be empty. So if the key is empty, there's no reboot, and otherwise there is a reboot pending. So those are the 3 detection mechanisms you have to detect if there's a reboot. I think you can also do it via WMI, but this covers it as well. I close the function again, because I will explain everything. So first we start on line 50 here. The StatusAll is just an empty array, right? We're going to store some information in there, and what information specifically? The reboot pending information from several computers, remote systems. So I made some comments here. You can of course query your Active Directory, get Active Directory computers from a specific container like I do here for the whole domain, and then you can filter some stuff. You can use all those names inside of a list. You can get it from DHCP, perhaps from a database. Perhaps you have SCCM, you know, System Center Configuration Manager. You can get it from there. Perhaps you can get it from DNS. Perhaps you can get it from your CMDB. You know, it doesn't matter. You can get that information, then you stick it in a list, sort of a list, and then we loop through that list on line 55. And I, for the sake of this demo, just use a simple text file where all these 5 servers are in, right? The ones we deployed there. Okay. So what we do here is basically on line 55 there. And I'll size it even up. Close the left pane here. Yeah, something like this. So what we do here, we loop through this text file, right? We get line by line, and then we iterate through that. And then the StatusAll, I explained to you, this is where we store information. And this means that we append. So if there's already something in it, we append to it. And then basically we call a function here. And this function accepts as input the machine name and some credentials. Because I'm sitting on my gaming PC, and the other servers we are targeting are running in the Windows domain. So I have no credentials for my gaming PC to reach out. So I have some alternate credentials. I already explained it in a couple of videos. I set them here. I already have them in memory. So I'm not gonna type them over and over again. I'll remove that and I'll show you that I already have a credential object here. You see, this is my home mark. This is for my domain-based systems, right? Those are our Active Directory domain joined. So I'm sitting here on my game PC and we're calling this function with input server and credentials. Okay, then we go to this function and we do it in debug mode, but there's not much to debug, I can tell you that, because we're invoking a command remotely and then you cannot debug these individual lines, of course. It is possible, but it's a little bit tricky. So let's run the script for now. I'll put the debugger there as well. I'll run the code. I'll close the side panel for now. For each server in that list, right? You know how that works. Then we go to that function call here with some input. And here's basically where we call this Invoke-Command. And this needs some explanation. It's not that hard, but it needs a little bit of explanation. So initially here I set the Reboot Pending to false, right? That's the initial value. And then here what we do on line 10, basically connecting remotely to that machine and opening the Windows registry, right? We're sort of mounting that. Then here we get that specific component-based servicing key. We get the subkeys from that. Then we close the connection again. Then we loop through those keys and we check if there's a reboot pending. If there's a reboot pending, we set this reboot pending flag, this Boolean flag, to true, right? Because there's a reboot pending. We do the same for the next key, sort of the same mechanism. We get some information, get the subkeys, we loop, and if there's a reboot pending, we set that flag to true. We close the key again. Then we get this session manager pending file operations. If that contains anything, then there is a reboot pending. So we set that flag to true. And then here in the end, we have a statement, and it's not really needed, but I left it in for now. If there's a reboot pending is true, else reboot pending is false. But basically it's already set, so I could even remove that. Hang on. I will comment it out if my keyboard wants to work with me. Yeah, that's better. Yes, so we set the reboot pending, right? True, and initially it's false. So basically if none of these subkeys has any values, then the reboot pending will stay false, right? The value, it will never become true because it will never get into these if blocks. And then basically here we return a property, and I even didn't need to do it this way, it doesn't matter. Reboot pending, and then we create a new object and return that back. And to who? We return that back to here, to this caller here, right? We're calling that function, and that is now added to this array. So that will accumulate. Let's stop the script. Let's remove some debug lines and put the debugger sort of in the end, so where we can inspect the results, right? The end results. We're interested in that. Let's run it. Let's see what we get. Perhaps we get an error. I don't know. Let's wait. And I would expect that this has a restart now. So this should have a pending reboot, right? So let's see. I have this W02 comes back in the overview as a reboot required system, so to speak. So on this line, I'll show the status first. StatusAll. So now we have an array with some items. So if there's a reboot pending or not, on which system it runs, and that is because we're using an Invoke-Command that's remotely, and then you always get the PS computer name back. So we know where it runs, and this run space ID you basically can ignore that. It's not really important. But basically we have here a sort of overview: reboot pending, computer name true or false. So on line 61 now, I removed the run space ID. So this is how it looks then. I'll run that again, by the way. You see? So reboot pending, true, true, false, false. And this is the computer name. And what you can then do is use different techniques, of course. I just showed one example on line 63. Status all.where and then the reboot pending equals true. So then what you get back is only reboot pending is true for these two servers. These two servers have a reboot pending and the others are not. Of course, use your imagination. You can save this to an Excel, right? You can pipe that to an export CSV, you know, and give it some location. .csv, right? So stick it somewhere. You can outfile it, right? Outfile becomes a plain file, just a plain text file. And perhaps if you're only interested in that, you will only select the PS computer name, for instance. If you run this now, you only get this computer name back, and I think you can even do this, minus expand. Yes, and now you only have these names, right? These W1s, and you can then pipe that to outfile reboots.txt. Doesn't matter much, you know. Yeah, right. So if you run this now, and we look inside of here, we have a reboots.txt, and now we have a text file. The system that need to reboot. I created another video where how you can reboot multiple systems by using an input file. So use your imagination. You can of course call that here. You know, you get the content, get content of that reboots, right? You can get the content of that, and then you can pipe that to another script, for instance, or just call a script that uses this input, or use a scheduler that runs this first and then the other. Use your imagination. But basically, this is it. So. We can do one more test. We can, for instance, reboot this second server, run the script again, and let's see if it's then becomes false, right? There's no reboot required. Let's see if that works. You can see quite some updates being installed or applied. Still applying updates. As you can see, stage 1 of 4 still applying updates. Takes some time. Okay. So the one still needs a reboot. You see that it has a reboot pending. I just installed the new update there. And if we go to the second now, let's log into this one. This one is now being rebooted and patched, so to speak. And let's go back to our code, our fantastic script. And I run the code again. And let's see what we get back. And this time I don't do anything debugging wise. I disabled that. I just run the script by pressing F5. And let's wait what we get back. Yeah, there you have it. So the one still has a reboot pending, and it's correct because you see that here as well. System 3 till 5 I never touched, so I didn't install anything. I just freshly deployed them. Takes so much time to install the updates. And on system 2 you saw that I installed the updates. There was a reboot pending earlier. We rebooted the server and now it becomes false. So it has no reboot pending, and the one still has a reboot pending. I guess you believe me when I restart the one that this one will also return false, right? I think that's it. And perhaps we can examine the reboots file. You see that now only contains one entry instead of two, right? You saw that. And we do that here on line 63. Of course, you can use different methods. I just used the .where this time, but you can also pipe it to where, right? And then the syntax is a little bit different, but it works the same. I think that's it. But still, let me open Paint. Know my crappy drawing skills, but still a little bit explanation. So we have here now 5 servers, right? We had 5 servers, Windows boxes. Excuse me for my crappy drawing skills with the mouse. I was sitting here on my game PC. I was reaching out to all those 5 systems, right? Get that information, and then we got that back here. And we're using Windows remoting there, Invoke-Command, with alternate credentials, because I'm sitting here, right? I'm here, sitting here, and I don't have access to that basically. I cannot reach out. So I'm using different credentials from my domain basically, and those I hand over to that script, right? And those then get executed on those 5 systems, and we got the result back. That's sort of the drawing here. Excuse me, it's very crappy, but I hope you get the picture and how it works. And I will post this video now. Well, thanks for watching. See you again. Bye.